Well, the Homeland Security Secretary Bridget Nielsen, Kirstjen Nielsen, she has come forward and she says that the reporters and by members of Congress, the reporting is not true on this, and she's correct. She says this misreporting by members, press, and advocacy groups must stop. It is irresponsible and unproductive. As I've said many times before, if you are seeking asylum from your family, there's no reason to break the law and illegally cross between ports of entry. This is exactly right. Right now, the policy is if you cross between ports of entry, we will arrest you and we'll prosecute you. But if you show up at one of the border ports of entry, then you'll be treated as an asylum seeker and you won't be separated from your kids. And she continues, she says, you are not breaking the law by seeking asylum at a port of entry. And she continues as well. And she says, for those seeking asylum at ports of entry, we have continued the policy from previous administrations and will only separate if the child is in danger. There's no custodial relationship between family members or if the adult has broken a law. And she finishes up. She says, DHS takes very seriously its duty to protect minors in our temporary custody from gangs, traffickers, criminals, and abuse. And then she finishes by saying, we do not have a policy of separating families at the border, period. Everything she says there is factually true. Now, the media are lying about this. And in just a second, I'm going to show you how the media are lying about all of this and turning it into a major issue when, in fact, this is an easily solvable issue if we could just get past all the politics. So we begin with Chuck Todd. So Chuck Todd has on Kellyanne Conway on NBC News on Sunday. And he says that the goal of the Trump administration is to hold children hostage to get Democrats to pass some law. That obviously is not the goal here. The operation of law, it's not up to Trump. The operation of law says that if you arrest a parent illegally crossing the border, the kid cannot be held in custody for longer than 20 days. That is the law. Trump did not make up the law. Trump cannot violate that law unless he just decides to release illegal immigrant parents who are crossing between border ports of entry illegally. All the lies that are being told today are really astonishing, and Chuck Todd forwards that game here.
And this is going to sound harsh, but it sounds like you're holding these kids hostage to get the Democrats to the table to pass some law. You just laid out a very compassionate case for why. I understand. You just laid out very with a lot of compassion and a lot of empathy in there. But it's not very empathetic. Then the most traumatic thing to do to a kid, separate them from their parents.
Okay, so what's your solution, Chuck? Right, this is the part that makes me crazy. The solution that is being proposed by people on the left is that Trump should just release people into the interior of the United States. That is the solution that they are proposing right now. That is not a solution. There are laws on the books. You do not get to cross into the country illegally. Again, we have provisions that say if you come to a port of entry in the United States, then we will treat you like a normal asylum seeker. If, however, you are sneaking through the brush near Sonoma and you just decide to cross the border illegally, not near a port of entry, and we catch you, we're not going to treat you as though you were an asylum seeker, because if you were an asylum seeker, you would have gone to a port of entry. Right? But the media are just lying flat out about this. I will say I thought the most hilarious thing is after Jeff Sessions quoted the Bible to say that people should abide by the law, MSNBC decided to ask, what would Jesus do? So apparently Trump has now won the war on Christmas. Trump has officially won the war on Christmas because he's got the anchors at MSNBC actually reading the Bible. I do enjoy when folks on the left start reading the Bible and they skip over all the parts about, like abortion and same-sex marriage and adultery, and they skip over all of those parts and they go straight to the most vague portions that support their position. So here's Ali Velshi on MSNBC, who I guess went to some sort of seminary, and he did a full segment on MSNBC called What Would Jesus Do About Illegal Immigration?
But Jesus said, suffer little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven.
What does that have to do with illegal immigration?
To Matthew chapter 25 again, this time verse 40. And the king shall answer and say unto them, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of my brethren, ye have done it unto me. That's just a small sampling of what's in the Bible.
Well, hallelujah. MSNBC calling out the priests and the pastors to talk about everything that's going on the border. Again, you're not going to see them do this with regard to Planned Parenthood. That was the most ironic tweet in all of this. Planned Parenthood tweeted this out. So here's what Planned Parenthood tweeted. They tweeted out, in our hearts and minds today, all of the fathers and parents who have been separated from their children at borders, keep families together, hashtag Father's Day. And then it says, you deserve to be together regardless of immigration status. Keeping families together is reproductive justice. You kill babies. Okay, that's what Planned Parenthood does for a living. 300,000 unborn children a year. Now, whatever you may say about separating families from children at the border, and again, I think there's an easy congressional fix to all of this that Speaker Ryan's office has told me they're already pursuing today. Even if you believe that that's something that ought to be fixed, what Planned Parenthood does to kids, a lot worse than separating them at the border for a week and a half. Okay, they kill them. So I do love how the left suddenly is interested in God and the Bible when it comes to illegal immigration. By the way, I just want to note this, as someone who's fond of the Old Testament, right? I wear the funny hat on my head because I am fond of the Old Testament. And I like it in the original Hebrew, the hardcore way. And whenever it talks about treating strangers in your land with certain respect, the precondition in all of Jewish law for all of Jewish history is that people have to accept the law of the land. If you violate the law of the land, you're not treated like a stranger in the land, like a ger toshav, right? You instead are treated like somebody who's violating the law of the land. You're treated like a criminal. So to misquote the Bible purposefully is really ridiculous. Now, the worst of all is Kathy Griffin, of course, because Kathy Griffin only makes a headline when she says something absolutely awful. So she decided that she would go off on Melania. She said, F you, Melania. You know damn well your husband can end this immediately, feckless, complicit piece of bleep. I do love that so many folks on the left are so angry at all the women in the Trump administration. They're feckless and complicit. It's so funny. All those people wouldn't say that Hillary Clinton was feckless and complicit when it came to her husband's exploitation of women, but it's a different thing when you're talking immigration policy and Melania Trump. Like Melania's just going to stroll on into the Oval and suddenly Trump's going to shift his immigration policy because Melania said something.